Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. Please be seated. I hope if you've had a few minutes to read our acknowledgement to our friends and neighbors at the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh and Musqueam. And just before calling the meeting to order tonight, I feel it necessary to recognize the passing of a truly remarkable person who has contributed so much to the history and makeup and the aesthetics of our community, and that is Don Vaughn. There he is there at the opening of the Keenelau Fitness Park. And Don was a landscape architect who has had a great impact on our waterfront. He served on so many committees of council over the years. I had the pleasure of first starting to work with him back in the early 80s. So he will be very much missed. Thank you, Pascal. For those people in the community interested in the popular sport of pickleball, we would invite you to join us for our meeting on February 9th. That item will be on the agenda. And also I encourage everyone who may have the opportunity to go to Horseshoe Bay to check out the incredibly nice work done by our municipal staff, and through our parks manager. Please express our sincere thanks to everybody who worked on the new pier, which serves both transient population, but also our very important marine search and rescue. Great job. So with that, call the meeting to order, ask for an approval of the agenda, and I think there'll be an additional item. Councillor Thompson, please.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to, add under new business, 2196 Marine Drive, Community Heritage Registry. And with that, I'd like to recommend that the January 26, 2026 regular council meeting agenda be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Lambert. Move, seconded. Question. All in favor? Contrary, carried. Thank you. This is a wonderful item number 3, protecting parks in West Vancouver. I'll turn it over to Councillor Lambert, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Recommend that the proposed park dedication bylaw number 5424/2026 be read a first, second, and third time.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy. Thank you. This is just formalizing parks. It's funny, you drive throughout West Vancouver and you look at all of our beautiful parks and you assume they're parks, and we discovered. Oh, excellent. Yes, let's do that. Thank you.
It's a very short one. Be quick.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. During the preparation of the Parks Master Plan in 2012, it was identified that several parks in West Vancouver did not have a park dedication bylaw in place. Last March, we dedicated 12 parks, and we are here this evening to continue that process with another 12 parks. To ensure the long-term protection of these valued public spaces, staff are recommending the adoption of the park dedication bylaw. Formal dedication provides a layer of protection, helping to ensure these lands remain parkland into the future. In accordance with the community charter, once a park is officially dedicated, it becomes significantly more difficult to remove that designation. And the 12 parks that we are looking to dedicate this evening are 13th Street and Keith Road Park, Chartwell Park, Eagle Harbor Field, the Glen Eagles Golf Course, Horseshoe Bay Park, Larson Bay Park, Memorial Park, Park Verdun, 4 new lots along the Seaview Walk, Westridge Park, White Cliff Park, and White Islet Park, and also the parks in the Caulfield area containing the Sahali Trail.
Excellent. It's hard to imagine that Memorial Park wasn't ever dedicated as a park. Bit of an oversight, I'd say there. So that's moved and seconded. Councillor Cassidy, please.
So if I may ask, the project that is currently under development on Daffodil, and in its previous iteration, back in, I think, 2014, 2018 time period, the previous project, there was a park land being dedicated. Do you know, it's diagonally across the street from Park Verdun, next door to Eagle Harbor School. There was a park that was being given by the developer at that time. Do you know the status of that, please?
I'm sorry, Councillor Cassidy, I do not know the status.
Oh,
Sorry, Ms. McGuire does know that, and fortunately she's here tonight. Not on that subject, but thanks for being with us tonight.
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Cassidy. I think you're talking about the Daffodil development that was recently approved by council.
Yes, but under the previous developer, there was parkland allotted, and I'm wondering if that has been dedicated as such.
I don't know if it's gone through the park dedication bylaw process, but that could happen at any time. But the lands that were dedicated to the district as dedicated parkland, from time to time, what happens is if a developer is doing a large subdivision and they're required to dedicate parkland, which would have been the case in the case you're talking
Right.
about, basically what happens is once the site is subdivided, the surveyor will indicate the land that's dedicated to the district as dedicated park. And then this layer of protection that's going through right now is a second layer of protection that can happen. But in the case you're talking about, it would have been subdivided and dedicated as part to the district, but this could also occur for those sites as well.
Okay, it will occur, I hope.
We can check with our parks colleagues and make sure that that's in the inventory that they would then bring forward to council.
Yes, because in the previous project, that was seen as one of the benefits of the project at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary, the motion is carried. Thank you. Item number 4, this is a proposed development. Is there anyone here? Ms. McGuire, you're going to speak to this? And is the applicant in the room
Yeah.
tonight? Thank you.
Yeah, so I just have a short presentation and then I'll turn it over to the applicant who also has a short presentation as well. So good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. For consideration tonight is a proposed development application that would allow for a townhouse project at 6085 and 6093 Marine Drive. So you can see a map on the screen there. The site is owned by TELUS and includes a decommissioned TELUS building. It includes 2 parcels. You can see those on the map there. Directly across from the Glen Eagles Golf Course. The site is directly south of a small neighborhood parking lot that provides access to the Seaview Walk Trail. And then directly to the east is the Seaview Walk Trail. The site is relatively steep, sloping up towards the trail, and includes mature conifers along with some invasive plants as well. It also has direct access to the 250 bus that provides westbound bus service to Horseshoe Bay. So the townhouse project is coming in under OCP, or Official Community Plan Policy 2.1.5, that allows consideration of missing middle projects like this one in locations on appropriate sites, for example, around transit service or recreational facilities, and then with a number of design criteria, including consideration of neighborhood context and character. So for this project, it's a 12-unit, 3-story townhouse project. The unit sizes range from approximately 1,800 square feet up to 1,900 square feet. Each one is 3 bedrooms. And the proposed floor area ratio, or FAR, is 0.7. Underground parking is proposed, accessed off Marine Drive, with 2 vehicle parking stalls for each unit. And then just one clarification from the slide here. Proposed as part of the project, there's actually 4 visitor parking stalls, surface parking stalls. And as I said, the applicant has a short presentation, so they'll go into a bit more detail about the proposed design. But generally, the design of the townhomes is meant to blend in with the forested setting with high quality materials and articulation in response to the surrounding area. We did review the project as per standard practice with a financial analyst, and they reviewed the project, and based on that financial review, a cash or financial community amenity contribution is not supported by this particular rezoning application. And that's generally because the density is fairly low and due to the construction costs to build the project. However, I should note that there are improvements that would be delivered by the applicant if council approves the project. So that includes delivery of a new sidewalk, an improved and accessible bus stop in front of the site, as well as invasive species removal on the adjacent trail area. Planning Committee did review the project in April of last year and supported the project generally with some comments for the applicant to respond to. The applicant did revise the application and addressed all the planning committee comments rather. You can see here an elevation plan showing some of the adjustments that they made to the roof line to respond to the planning committee comments. And just to note that the comment about the design quality, if council was to approve the development permit, the materials and the design quality would be secured through that. In terms of public consultation, the applicant hosted 2 neighborhood meetings, one before they submitted the formal application, and then one in May of last year. Generally, feedback was supportive of the proposal with only one response that expressed concern. And so to conclude, we are recommending that council give the proposed bylaws first reading and set the date for public hearing on February 23rd, as the proposal in staff's opinion is consistent with the relevant OCP policy for missing middle housing, responds to the relevant development permit guidelines, and is generally supported by council's strategic objective to expand a diverse housing supply. And then finally, because the project would deliver a missing middle housing development in the Glen Eagles neighborhood that's close to the community center, the Seaview Walk, Spirit Trail, and is supported by transit. So that concludes my presentation. And as I said, the applicant does have one too, but happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much. Any questions for Ms. McGuire? Thank you. No questions from council. We'll hear from the applicant then. Hello, thanks for joining us this evening.
Yes.
I'm just put the speaker on.
Thanks for joining us. Could I ask you to introduce yourselves, please?
Certainly. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Elise Spearing. I'm the development manager from LPI Management, or like 4 properties for the project. And I'm here with Louise Webb from Merrick Architecture.
Thanks very much. Sorry, Louise Webb.
Louise Webb, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you, staff, for your presentation and all your hard work on the project so far. I'll do my best not to be repetitive with what was already presented so far. I'll briefly touch on site context, but I'll focus in on our proposal's program, neighborhood fit, sustainability measures, and community benefits. So first off, I want to quickly highlight again how well this location is suited for the missing middle housing program, being right beside a trailhead for the Seaview Walk, a 5-minute walk to the Glen Eagles Community Center and Golf Course, a 15-minute walk to the Glen Eagles Elementary, and bus stops in both directions right in front of the site. With the existing TELUS building on site being decommissioned, we have the opportunity now to redevelop this property with a more context appropriate use that complements the neighborhood and responds to the district's housing objectives. At a glance, we're proposing 12 family-sized townhomes over a shared underground parking structure that houses 2 dedicated stalls per unit. Each unit has their front yard facing Marine Drive and their backyard along the forest edge. Our proposed design is guided by a series of principles. The design team has worked hard to retain trees, conceal services, activate the street, protect our neighbors' privacy and views, work with the topography, make it family-friendly, and reflect the quality and character of West Vancouver. Here on the site plan, you can see how the building is positioned carefully to protect featured trees beside the trailhead parking lot, as well as a large grouping at the south end of the site and the entire adjacent Seaview Trail forest. The driveway and associated service areas, including our 4 visitor parking stalls, waste collection area, PMT, and the parkade entry, are strategically positioned to take advantage of the retained forest buffer, ensuring both their functionality and limited visibility. So from the street, this back of house area would look like little more than just another driveway off Marine Drive. Looking at the project in section, you can see how the natural topography, big front and rear setbacks, and new and retained trees will offer lots of privacy to our neighbors, both uphill and downhill. Our building heights and roof line are carefully planned to stay low, protecting the views and comfort of both our uphill neighbors as well as users of the Seaview Trail. From a livability perspective, it was important to us to offer as much of single-family living functionality as we could. So for us, that meant limiting the number of stairs in the units by keeping the parking at grade with level 1 rather than adding an extra level below grade, as well as providing balconies and big yards on level 2 directly connected to the living area rather than something like roof decks. This way, each home has direct and easy access to their outdoor space, their cars, their bikes, their storage, with half as many stairs as most urban townhome forms. It also meant getting creative with interlocked unit planning in order to fit 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms all on one top floor without making the units oversized and impacting affordability. Architecturally, the interlocked unit plan is reflected in the elevations by visually pairing up units with the roof line and cladding. This allows the building to appear as fewer larger homes, better suiting the single-family nature of the surrounding properties without totally losing the identity of each home. Vertical wood cladding and stair detailing in a natural tone color palette of greens and browns complements the setting and gives the building warmth and texture. And the way we've nestled the building into the hillside results in the 2-story elevation you see at the bottom of the screen there, which is facing Seaview Trail, giving the building a low profile relative to the trail beyond. Sustainability is a priority in West Vancouver, so we have designed with that in mind from site planning through to construction detailing. Our on and off-site tree retention will be supported by invasive species management, which should support the health and permanence of that forest for a long time to come. And from a construction standpoint, these are going to be high-performing homes. We'll meet the highest achievable level of BC's Energy Step Code, Step 4, as well as Level 3 of the BC Zero Carbon Step Code. In practice, for future homeowners, that means the homes will be durable, cost less to operate, and feel better to live in. And for the environment, it means a smaller footprint for the project by using less energy, water, and gas. So in summary, our proposal offers 4 key things. The right homes in the right place, meaning alternative options to detached homes in a super family-friendly neighborhood that will be more attainable from a price point perspective, yet without sacrificing livability or quality. Protection, restoration, and revegetation of the adjacent Seaview Walk forest. High-performance construction through sustainable design. And bike and pedestrian-friendly street upgrades on Marine Drive. In short, this is a modest, well-considered infill project that will deliver great family homes near transit, schools, and recreation in a low-impact way that respects the forest and our neighbors. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. I'll first see if there's any questions from any member of council. Seeing none, Councillor Gambioli, sorry, Councillor Cassidy, please.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and I'm very happy that something is going to come into this site. It is a lovely area for which to build, but my issue is they're not particularly attractive looking units. And I'm just wondering if from the front, I was just wondering if there's some way you could not change the coloring or the decks. And perhaps even, I mean, you see somebody on a bicycle there, but that's Marine Drive and it's an extremely busy street, and maybe some fences or such the like to give them a greater degree of security from the actual edge of the property to the sidewalk.
Any thoughts?
Through the mayor to Councillor Cassidy. The architecture we developed here, we did work quite hard to create something that we felt suited this setting and suited West Coast architecture without, wanting to avoid anything that felt really you know, hyper contemporary, hyper modern. This was sort of from Merrick's office, a take on West Coast architecture that is a response to the unit plans themselves, the form of the development, the demands of the energy modeling program, and what we need to meet in terms of, you know, fenestration, window to wall ratios, as well as trying to keep roof lines low and respectful of heights relative to the neighborhood. I think from a front yard perspective, we were hoping, the intent was initially to avoid fences in order to avoid having too harsh a relationship and having more of a soft edge that was more planted with a low stone wall. But that could be something that we could look at, is securing those front yards. Louisa, if you want to say anything.
We talk about the fences of the defensible space.
Ms. Webb, did you want to add a comment?
No, I was just going to say, talk about the front yards, but at least said everything I was going to say. I think also, just to reiterate, we felt that the tone and the colors of the palette were important to make as subtle as possible to fit into the surrounding area. And it's for those reasons, as I think Elise alluded, that we chose those different tones of brown and green.
Thank you. Councillor Gambioli, please.
So yeah, can you go back to your very first slide? Yeah, so yeah, that gives a different impression, I think. I guess my first question is are these the renderings that were shown at the recent public event?
Yes.
Yes, okay, because we got different drawings in our package, which were slightly different. They don't look like this. So I think this is an improvement, or I think that was perhaps in the report. But yeah, I mean, in that sense, I do agree with Councillor Cassidy. This is not a place I would recommend riding a bike without a helmet, for example. And that's supposed to be representing Marine Drive here, right? Is that a curve in the road that I'm not aware of, or is that actually proposed to be sort of added, just slow people down, or is that just a rendering? Because it's a
so
pretty
through-
straight part of the street, no? I mean, I'm just,
Hey,
cars go really fast there. It's just my feedback.
Is this where you're proposing to put in an enhanced bus stop?
Yes, Mayor, and through the Mayor to Councillor Gambioli, the project would include full frontage upgrades. So that would include the new sidewalk and curb and a formalized lay-by for the bus, so that there's a full space for the bus to pull out of traffic,
Got it.
as well as a wheelchair accessible bus stop.
Okay, I see. All right, so that's interesting. And that's what's sort of shown here. Okay. Great. Well, those are my only questions at this point.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. Somehow we did receive different images in our package. So I think if council votes to move this forward to a public meeting, even this group of this photo image looks different to my eye than the one at the very end. It just, I don't know whether, this is architectural license, but I would encourage you for the public hearing, if council goes that way, to be consistent. I think this one, as Councillor Gambioli said, it seems softer, nicer than the other. I am aware of the home that's directly to the south of this property that has kind of melted into the topography with its color choices. You barely see it or think about it, but there may be some community sensitivity around that issue. Councillor Thompson, please. Oh, sorry, Councillor Watt.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I'm really thrilled to see something coming in here of that nature. And sorry, I'm a bit distracted because I pulled up my own computer model monitor, trying to see what we received. And I do see that that image was in the package we received. But like Counselor Cassidy, I also looked, and maybe it's the other images when you're looking straight on and not on this angle. I also would prefer to see more charm and character, and this particular image, it looks better. And I think it's also clipped in the version that we received. It's the same image, but shorter. So I'm just hoping that attention is paid to that, and just trying to maintain some charm that will be perhaps make it not so glaring. I think it looks better on that angle, but I do share some of Councillor Cassidy's concerns when you're looking at it straight on.
Thank you, Councillor Gambioli. Actually, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to add that I was at the planning committee, as you remember, and their only real concern was the design. And I see that you have been somewhat responsive, and I agree with my fellow councillors that you'll probably continue to get a little bit of pushback on design. So just keep that in mind. But as for a housing product, it's great. And we can't wait for this to happen. Do you have a sense, if this moves forward, what sort of timeline you're looking at? We're seeing a lot of projects stall out here, so.
Through the mayor to Councillor Thompson, our hope would be, if all goes smoothly here forward, to be able to start construction in Q1 next year. Based on my understanding of approvals timelines as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gambioli.
Okay, so I'll make some motions.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, Councillor Cassidy.
My apologies, Councillor Gambioli. I guess I didn't come up with the word when I first spoke. I think they look too institutional, too cold. There's not, I don't know, when one drives home, one wants to get a sort of a warm and fuzzy feeling that this is your home. But they're on Marine Drive, which is a very harsh road to be coming off, a very busy road. And they themselves look very institutional, very gulag, if I can be quite blunt.
Councillor Gambioli.
Oh, right. Is it my turn now?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I will recommend that opportunities for consultation on the proposed official community plan amendment with persons, organizations, and authorities as outlined in the report dated January 12th, 2026 be endorsed as sufficient consultation for purposes of section 475 of the Local Government Act.
And I will second that.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Contrary, the motion is carried. Thank you, Councillor Gambioli.
And I will recommend the proposed official community plan bylaw number 4985 2018 amendment bylaw number 5394 2026 be read a first time.
Thank you, Councillor Snyder.
Second that.
Discussion, question, all in favor? Contrary, carried.
And that proposed zoning bylaw number 4662 2010 amendment bylaw number 5395 2026 be read a first time.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary, carried. Thank you. And finally, Councillor
And
Gambioli.
finally, that proposed official community plan bylaw number 4985 2018 amendment bylaw number 5394 2026 and proposed zoning bylaw number 4662 2010 amendment bylaw number 5395 2026 be presented at a public hearing scheduled for February 23rd, 2026 at 5 p.m. in the Municipal Hall Council Chamber and via electronic communication facilities, and that statutory notice be given of the scheduled public hearing.
Thank you.
Second that.
Any discussion? Question, all in favor?
One more.
Contrary, carried. Sorry, I've got one more for you.
Oh, there
Councillor
is one
Gambioli.
more. Okay. You know what? I'm just going to say as written.
We'll accept that.
Development
Councillor
permit.
Snyder?
Mm.
All right. Any discussion? I'll call the question. And again, that's just setting the public hearing for February 23rd. Thank you. That matter is concluded. We'll move to item number 5, a proposed road closure and exchange. Councillor Watt.
Yep. I would like to recommend that proposed road closure and removal of highway dedication bylaw number 5418 2026 be read a first, second, and third time.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
Second.
Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary, the motion is carried. Now, the biggest item of the evening the proposed 2026 operating and capital budget. And our wonderful staff are going to come and give us a presentation. Needless to say, members of council have been working on this for some considerable amount of time, so this presentation is really for the benefit of the public more than council tonight.
In council, this evening, we are presenting the district's 2026 budget and the proposed tax rate increases. The budget maintains essential services and advances priority asset renewal. It proposes an operating levy increase of 2.43% and an asset levy increase of 1%, which is a combined impact of approximately $210 for the average assessed single-family home. Public engagement, including online questionnaire and open house session and written submissions, highlighted two clear priorities: protecting core services and tackling deferred maintenance, while keeping tax increases modest, given affordability pressures. In response, the plan incorporates a focused set of reduction strategies that hold the operating levy low and balance resident affordability with the district's financial risk and maintaining service levels. So staff are seeking council's direction on the proposed tax rate increase so we can finalize the 5-year financial plan bylaw and bring it forward for council's consideration. I will now invite Ms. Latieva to present the 2026 budget in more detail.
Thanks very much.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and members of the public. Tonight, staff are presenting the proposed 2026 operating and capital budgets for Council's consideration, including the proposed tax rate increase. My goal is to walk you through the main cost pressures shaping the 2026 budget, what the proposed tax impacts are, how we are managing pressures through reductions, cost savings, and the reserve strategies, high-level overview of the 2026 capital plan, and what we heard from the community. Before we review the proposed increase, it's helpful to explain the main cost drivers that put pressure on property taxes. Property taxes in West Vancouver are often perceived as higher relative to other municipalities because approximately 54% of taxes collected are remitted to other taxing authorities. In addition, higher assessed values increase West Vancouver's proportional share of these taxes. Only 46% of property taxes fund services delivered by the municipality. Costs are high in West Vancouver because the community has a limited industrial and commercial tax base. About 94% of municipal property taxes are paid by residential properties, with the remainder from businesses. The service area is also dispersed, requiring longer networks for roads and utilities and more travel time to deliver services. And with lower density, the cost per household is higher. Finally, local geography increases constructions and maintenance costs, including building more complex water and sewer systems, bridges, and protect the foreshore from sea level rise and king tides. The next slide highlights the specific 2026 pressures affecting the budget, both from rising local costs and from downloaded requirements from other levels of government and agencies. On cost pressures, labor cost patterns across the region continue to influence budgets. There are also imposed external agency costs, for example, ECOM for dispatch services and Justice Institute of British Columbia for recruit training costs. We have commitments tied to phase development agreement for Cypress Village and ongoing needs related to climate mitigation and adaptation. On downloading, here are a few significant examples of the long list. We are seeing additional municipal workload and costs stemming from legislative and policy changes, a significant one from housing legislation, accessibility standards, and other provincial and regional initiatives. There is also a growing municipal role in responding to homelessness and affordable housing, such as support programs, cleanup and restoration, and impacts on community safety in parks. And lastly, when provincial funding is limited, the community often looks to the municipality to fill funding gaps. All these pressures are not discretionary at its own. Many are external, structural, or community driven. Now that the key cost drivers were reviewed, we outlined the proposed tax rate increase and what it could mean for a typical household. This slide is focusing on the district's levies only. It explicitly does not include other taxing authorities like schools, transit, or the regional district. The proposed levy increases are for the operating levies 2.43%, for the asset levy 1%, and there is no increase to the environmental levy. Total property tax increase is 3.43%, which is equivalent to 3.4 million budget gap. And in terms of what that means for the average taxpayer, based on the BC assessment completed roll, the average single family home assessed at 3.6 million. The proposed tax increase impact is equivalent to additional $210. For the average strata unit assessed at 1.65 million, the proposed tax increase impact is equivalent to additional $97. We will walk you through what is driving the operating budget change next. This slide breaks down the operating budget change into revenues, expenses, and the strategies used to mitigate the tax pressure. On the revenue side, we have revenue increases totaling 2 million coming from items like program revenues, fees and charges, and parking related changes. But we also have revenue decreases of 4.6 million, reflecting items like prior year budget deficit impact, permit and development application fee changes, and interest revenue changes. The net revenue change totaling to 2.56 million decrease. On the expense side, labor agreements for existing staff contribute to 4.3 million increase. Contractual obligations, inflation, 0.7 million increase, imposed external agency costs, 0.3 million increase, and service enhancement, 0.2 million increase in costs. It's also worth noting that cost savings of almost $1 million were found through the budget review across the district, which allowed to reduce operating costs, including some position elimination. This is an equivalent of 1% tax levy decrease. Then we get to the most important section for affordability, budget reduction strategies, including changes to reserve contributions and one-time reserve opportunities. Those strategies totaled to 4.85 million and brings the reduced operating levy to 2.26 million. And finally, external community requests at a small amount, leading to a proposed operating levy total of 2.4 million, which is equivalent to 2.43% operating tax levy increase. On the next slide, we explain and summarize the budget reduction strategies mentioned above. There are two approaches suggested for the mitigation of property tax impact. The first approach is to reduce contributions to reserves, including elimination of the annual operating contribution to asset reserves by 2.55 million. Instead, we are proposing the 1% asset levy increase to dedicate annual funding allocation to the asset reserves. The second option is reducing the environmental reserve contribution by 400,000 on a one-time basis for 2026 budget year only. We will be still contributing 800K to the environmental reserve in 2026. And the second group of strategies is one-time reserve drawdowns. For this group, we have two options. It's eliminating the external debt repaying reserve of 1.5 million. And the next one is reducing the fringe benefit reserve used in 2026. It's also a one-time opportunity, and we propose to reduce the reserve by 400K. Total impact of budget reduction strategies is estimated at 4.85 million, or almost 5% reduction to the total estimated operating levy increase. While the core services and compliance safety needs are prioritized, the proposed budget also has new services and external community request additions. Here we are listing new and enhanced items included in the budget totaling to 222,000, which includes the net cost for a parking by law enforcement officer, trail maintenance partnership support, Horseshoe Bay Boathouse operating cost increase, enhanced geese mitigation and feces management. Operating impacts of several capital projects request if council approves the projects, which are police body-worn cameras, maintenance for new pickable courts, and network connectivity maintenance for fire long-range thermal cameras. Then external community requests were put forward by staff on behalf of the following organizations. For the fee for services increases, requests from KMIC Arts Center and West Vancouver Community Arts Council, and converting temporary programs to permanent for the cost of outreach worker and shower program. The next slide describes the 20-year asset management plan for the district, and it shows including long-term projections for maintenance and renewal costs to keep existing infrastructure safe, reliable, and less expensive over time. So each year we review the asset management plan against the capital funding available, and we have to defer some asset maintenance for future years. These shifts are shown with the budget charts bars in pale colors. Over the next 20 years, the estimated average annual cost to maintain general fund asset at optimal level is 22 millions. The 2026 estimated available capital funds from the asset levy are 17.5 millions, which is creating a funding gap of 4.5 million against the optimal investment level. To help address this gap and reduce the risk of asset failures from deferred maintenance, the district proposes increasing to the asset levy by 1% to a total of 17.5 million in 2026. The next slide summarizes the 2026 capital request, funding sources, and provides some examples. Overall, the 2026 capital program is heavily weighted toward maintaining and replacing existing assets with selected new strategic additions. You can see that maintaining and replacing existing assets requests are 70% of the capital plan, and new assets make up 30% with a large portion in strategic investment. Total 2026 capital requests are shown as 28.1 million funded by asset reserves from external sources, donations, and from other funds and reserves. And on the right, you can see some examples of capital requests from each project category. For the asset preservations, we outlined shoreline protection implementation project and sport field drainage and irrigation replacement project. For the regular asset maintenance, we list the West Vancouver Aquatic Center renewal funding request. Also the significant request for roads and payment work. And for strategic investments, one of the examples is the Cypress Village materials transfer site supports operation needs. The last slide summarizes what we've heard from the public at different public engagement stages, started on August 25th with the budget webpage update. The two main tools used for the public feedback were a budget questionnaire with 422 responses received between the end of August and in early September. And the second tool was a public consultation period open in January, including an open budget house with 18 visitors. Key themes from the August-September budget questionnaire were that the residents gave top priorities to engineering and transportation and parks and recreation services, low priorities for arts and culture, climate action and environment, and library services. Many residents emphasized strong tax sensitivity and stricter cost control. It's also worth noting that the results may be biased since it wasn't non-random sampling. Key themes from January public consultations are that residents expressed continuing concern about property tax increases and cost control. Also, there was a concern about relying on one-time reserve drawdowns and request to stay focused on core services and operational efficiency. This feedback aligns closely with the budget strategies you've seen in the previous slides. This concludes the overview of the proposed 2026 operating and capital budgets. Thank you, and we are happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much. I know members of council are most familiar with all of this and are very grateful to Crystal, to you and all of your staff for a really outstanding job. And also thanks to our Finance and Revenue Advisory Committee that spent a good deal of time going over this as well. Councillor Thompson, over to you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Watt.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I have quite a few questions and notes, but before I get started, I would like to propose that we defer the vote on this for 2 weeks, as we have only just completed public engagement 5 days ago. So I'm just putting that out to my fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
Okay, you weren't putting out a
Well,
motion to vote?
is that if you want to move
Yeah.
deferral, you have to make that as a motion.
So I would like to move that as a motion then.
Is there a second?
Okay,
Okay.
I
Councillor
stand
Thompson.
alone.
Yeah, not necessarily. I know there's some pressure that we haven't had quite enough consultation. Never seems to be quite enough. But, you know, in our clumsy way, we've gotten through a lot of really good discussions on this, including with our finance committee. And I feel that, you know, we've certainly arrived at a tax rate that we feel proud to endorse. And, you know, there's just a few questions out in the public, but one little one just from your presentation. I noticed in your very last slide, there was a core service focus. Can you expand on that at all, by what that might mean or include? Or is that just a very general request for core service focus?
Yes, it's based on the feedback we received at the second public engagement period. One of the comment was that the resident is new to the district, and comparing to his prior location, he wanted to recognize that the district is focusing on core services, so that we have a strong focus on core services, and he just gave us kind of a praise for this.
Okay, so he was happy with our core services.
Yeah.
And operational efficiency. Okay. Yeah, it's an interesting one. One of the concerns that has been brought to us through communications is what we're doing with our environmental levy in this budget. Can you expand on the rationale behind that, and perhaps if we didn't do that, what options we could have?
Thank you. Yes, there are options if council would like. Crystal, do you want?
Through the mayor to Councillor Thompson, we do have options that we put forward to council, and at any time you could change and kind of redirect staff. The environmental levy, we put that forward. That levy was established a few years ago. So then the funds that are coming from the environmental levy, it then gets contributed into the environmental reserve. But it is up to council through the financial plan to determine what that allocation amount would be. So over the last few years since it was established, it's been at 1.2 million. This year, just as an option to help reduce the tax rate, we're proposing to lower it by 400,000. So it would be an 800,000 transfer to the reserve. Council could direct us to change the amount.
So would that be year over year? From now on, we would just
for this
800
year.
Just for this year. And why would we? Okay, that's on top of not putting in an environmental levy
No,
increase at all.
There was
As well.
no increase,
Yeah.
just that the transfer amount would be 800,000 versus 1.2 million like in the past.
Okay, and then what were some of the options if we didn't agree that was the way to go about it?
We can look at some of our other reserves and do a risk assessment and trim a little bit off of a few other of our self-insurance funds. One of them could be the election reserve. We could look at the fringe reserve again and trim that a little bit more. And then we could also look at reviewing all of our budget assumptions in some of the areas and try to find a little bit more funds to then cover the gap.
Okay, and that was to the tune, that was, if we didn't remove that, would that be basically a 0.3?
Point
budget increase?
0.41%.
Sorry?
Sorry, a 0.41% tax increase.
0.41,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, I'll let some others weigh in.
Thank you, Councillor Gambioli.
So, yeah, I have some of the same concerns. So, you know, I'm looking at the number and it's been wrestled with by staff. I think the number is the best we're going to be able to do for all kinds of reasons this year. But I am really concerned about that reduction of the 400K to the environmental reserve. So I would not want to support this without finding a different plan for that amount. And so I guess I have two questions. So going back to your slide about all the downloading, you know, staff have put this together. It's a lot if you really want to parse it out, all the downloading that's happening or has happened over many, many years. Do we have any kind of a plan going forward to deal with this, or do we just keep going and we just keep saying, sure, we'll just keep dealing with all this downloading, all you know, all the legislative changes, that issues with affordable housing and homelessness, and the shoreline management, etc. I just wonder, what do we have a strategy?
Through the mayor to Councillor Gambioli, we have adjusted our work plans to try to absorb as much of this work as we can. I think through UBCM, we have a voice there to then be able to band together with other municipalities. We aren't the only ones facing these pressures. We can band together and speak up there. In terms of, you know, pushing back on, like, say, housing legislation, we've seen that the province will come down on us. So, you know, it's kind of hard to say, no, we can't do this. Not sure if our municipal manager or deputy municipal manager have anything else to add to that.
Thank you. I think I would just, echo what Ms. Boyce said. And I do think just making sure we vocalize the concerns and ideally do that with other municipalities is sort of the best that we can do at this point.
No question, it falls to us to band together with other communities around the province. We're not alone in suffering these downloading obligations.
And we do have to make the points. I mean, last time we had an election, I believe the number was something like 8% of the total tax that everyone pays comes to municipalities, and the other 92% goes to federal and provincial governments. So for them to be downloading more onto us every year especially through legislative changes, I mean, really, we have to be able to say no. Anyway, so I point that out as a really significant issue, I think, these days. So a smaller issue is, I take a look at the list of new spends, which is pretty small, right? But the one that sort of irks me a little bit and concerns me for the future is the mountain biking. And I have to admit, if I try to think of an analogy, there's not very good analogies, but we are now asking people who go for walks on the seawall or enjoy our parks to pay for parking, because there are costs involved in people showing up from everywhere. There's garbage and there's repairs and there's maintenance that have to be done to our parks. And it's not any different in the mountains, So now we've got lots of mountain bikers who are showing up, essentially, in my opinion, ruining our forests. And we're paying to rehabilitate these areas. And so at what point do we I don't know, start charging for using our trails. Start at least charging for parking up there. I don't know, I mean, we can laugh about it, but it is, I think it's a pretty serious concern. They're recreating for free and everybody else is paying for it. So I just wonder about going forward. I mean, 60,000 doesn't sound like much this year, but is this happening every year? What's the outlook for the future?
Ms. Kettler?
Through the mayor to Councillor Gambioli, the district recently created 4 dedicated mountain bike trails. In the past, the trails were on non-district land. So, excuse me, now that we do have these trails on district land, it is incumbent on us to ensure they're safe from a liability lens. Your point is well taken, and that is something we can certainly look at. Typically, where some of these trails start, the starting point where the parking happens, I believe it's actually off of Cypress Bowl Road, which is Moti. So we'd have to look at that, but that's something staff can take away. I would recommend for this year, I think it's important that we're maintaining those trails, and that that isn't only for 2026. That is an ongoing cost to ensure those trails are maintained.
Are we planning to create more trails on our land?
Through the mayor to Councillor Gambioli, the plan for Cypress Village does include some mountain bike trails in land that is district.
Okay. All right, that's everything for now.
Thank you. Okay. But if you, Ms. Boyd, if council wished to fund the 1.2 million in the environment fund, do you need a separate motion on that tonight, or can that be something we bring forward and amend? The overall budget number, I don't sense is going to change, but allocations within that budget amount, would you like that direction tonight, or could it come at our next meeting?
It would be preferable for it to come tonight.
Thank you.
And then we'll look at, and then we'll update council when we bring back the 5-year plan, what we did.
Thank you. Councillor Watt, please.
Yeah, thank you. I want to clarify, I am very happy with the tax rate we've agreed on. And, my request to defer by 2 weeks was just to give the public more chance to weigh in, and also to look at more creative options as to how to get to that number. But in addition to that, I have a few questions and comments. One, I know Ms. Gordon isn't here, and the two of you have also been deeply involved, but I just want to say that your team has put the district in an excellent position with the reserves, and absolute kudos to yourselves, Ms. Gordon, and the rest of your team. It's exemplary, and we are not the norm, this municipality, and how healthy our reserves are. So that's great. Now I have a question about geese, the geese mitigation program. I know it's only 14.6K, but I think it says in there on an ongoing basis. And to the best of my understanding, this mitigation strategy, or the strategies that we're using right now, are to satisfy the federal government that we've done everything we can. So how long do we have to go along before we're allowed to look at other measures?
Through the mayor to Councillor Watt. So there were several different avenues tied to geese mitigation. A geese molting strategy was approved in the fall, and that's where the research is done to understand where the geese are. That's a requirement of the federal government to have that occur before you may then make requests for further mitigation. In addition to that, there were a couple of requests that have come through this operating budget. One is the 14,600, and that's tied to additional power washing and additional labor for the fecal pickup. And then in the capital, there's a request for an additional fecal picker-upper, for lack of a better word. It's a piece of equipment that staff sort of drag along for. Yeah, that's probably too much information, but so at that, I mean, the 14.6 would become embedded in the operating for years going forward. If it was not required, or if there were different geese mitigation strategies, then that could be reduced in future years.
Yeah, I think we know where the geese are. We should let them know that. So I just had another comments here. So to clarify, of course, none of this includes the North Shore wastewater treatment plant. Just comment. I don't believe that is a question. I think we know that. And just out of curiosity, how much does the bylaw department bring in per year in fines? Do we have that figure?
We have the manager
There we go.
put on the spot. He didn't, I don't think he came ready to answer that question.
Sorry,
tonight,
it
but
just popped. It wasn't something
joining
I
us
thought
this
of
evening.
earlier, but I'm glad you're here.
Through the mayor to Councillor Watt, although I don't have exact figures at this current time, we currently sit around between 600 to 700,000 in fines. We are looking at potentials to increase that revenue, including our budget request through this proposed 2026 capital budget. And we are currently reviewing the fine amounts themselves. I'm on top of my team to increase our enforcement. Not happy with where we're at this current time, because I know we can do better. And a large portion of our revenue also comes from our licensing sphere, which is roughly $1.5 million.
Okay, and you guys are doing a great job. I know you're really strained, the department. I was just surprised that I think I've always just presumed that a bylaw officer would pay for themselves, but okay, appreciate it. And that was really my only question on bylaw. And I have another question for Ms. Kettler. The pool was shut down, I think about 2 years ago for some extensive work. And I see that again in the budget this year. Is it just ongoing maintenance at that level, or? Because it was extensive the last time, wasn't it?
Through the mayor to Councillor Watt, that it's typical for the aquatic center or the pools to be closed on an annual basis for anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, depending on what has to happen within the tank area. I know there's a significant project of work that the presentation talked about. That really falls under the facility maintenance end of it. And I don't necessarily know that that's tied to an aquatic shutdown.
Okay, thank you. And just the last comment, in agreement with my colleagues and Mayor Sager, we cannot overemphasize the level of downloading from higher levels of government. It's a burden on the taxpayer, and anyway, I'll just leave my comments there.
Thanks very much. Councillor Snyder, please.
Thank you. So I just want to echo Councillor Watt's comments in regards to the work that Finance Department has put through over the last, the last year, in fact, and keeping us up to date on where we're at. So I do very much appreciate that, and the time and efforts that have gone into it. My comments is more so in concerns to the reserves. I mean, we've done a great job of building up the reserves. I think that one of the things that has changed over time is the use of some of these reserves. And I'm just wondering where we're at as far as a review of our existing reserves and the funds that are available in each of those reserves, because some of those reserves now seem to be almost outdated and the money has sort of sat there for quite some time. And I'm just wondering sort of what our plan moving forward is on the reserves.
Through the mayor to Councillor Snyder, it's actually an annual process that we review all of our reserves and look at, when we assess sort of the levels that they're at and look at the risk tolerance that we have. So we do look, we have statutory reserves, we have non-statutory reserves. The non-statutory reserves, we have a bit of flexibility. Those are our self-insurance funds. So those are the ones we're looking at, sort of historical transactions, that what has happened in the past and what do we need to account for and build it. So these are like sort of one-time events, extraordinary events, such as weather-related incidences, wage contingency, legal reserve. So those are the ones that we have a bit of flexibility and we determine the levels appropriate for our risk. All of the other statutory reserves, they're all either by bylaw or by the community charter. So we don't have any flexibility there. But this is annual process that we go through.
Right. I guess my concern, of course, is, last year we used funds from some of the reserves to pay down the tax rate increase. And last year when we had the same discussion, it was a one-time thing. It was a one-off sort of thing. And I notice again that it's happening again this year. And I, again, am a very big supporter of the 3.43. And I think that, you've done a remarkable job to get us to that. I'm just very concerned about the ongoing tapping into the reserves that we've done such a great job of building up over time. Now, this might be a question more so for, I guess, the 5-year plan moving ahead, but where do we go? Because I mean, if I'm not mistaken, if we weren't to be using the reserves here, we'd be looking at a tax increase of closer to around 8-ish. Is that a little over 8% if I'm not mistaken?
So we're looking at another, I think, 2.34% increase if it wasn't for the
For the
reserve
reduction there.
drawdowns.
So the reduction is the 2.43, so that gets us up to around 6% or so, 5.8. So I guess that's just my concern about obviously continuing to, every single year, if we're back at this, what's our plan moving forward? And I'm guessing that's part of the 5-year plan that we'll be discussing next time around. So, okay, that's just my comments.
Thank you, Councillor Snyder. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks. Just a couple more questions and then a few comments. Really appreciate the comments around the reserves. And I certainly felt that a one-off last year was worthwhile. And I think this year I get the impression we're going into reserves that haven't been really effectively used. So I'm okay with doing that this year. I think it's been a real creative way of looking at it. So my questions actually take us back to the environmental reserve. Do you know how much we currently have in there?
If my recollection is correct, I think we have about 2.6 million. Right.
Thank you.
2.8.
2.8. Thank you. Yes. And that's including what we'd put in this year, or?
That is not including this year's contribution.
Okay.
amount.
So, and I ask this question because I get the sense on council we're going to want to play around with that a little bit here. And, while optically, I don't think it sounds great to take money out of the environmental contribution. My understanding is that the environmental levy that we do have, we put towards programs that help us improve the quality of life within our community, tree planting, the heat pump program, and ways we can sustainably help our people help the environment. But those big projects that we're looking at doing, like the Forest Shore Protection, which are tenfold these costs, that cost has to come from federal, provincial funding. And so, this caution about taking money out of there, I just want to make sure we're doing it for a very practical reason, not just optics. So my understanding, I know Ms. Keith is really the person to speak to on this, is she felt we had enough funds to sustain these environmental supports that we have in the community. So would you agree with that?
Through the mayor to Councillor Thompson. She's not here. I can't speak on her behalf, but in discussions with her just for this year, I think she would be able to move forward on the projects and programs that she has already planned. The coastal adaptation plan is a much larger discussion that is not in the short future, but probably a little bit longer term that we can look at and plan. Having funds in the environmental reserve gives her the ability to then apply for grants, other grants, which we will need in order to, meet some of the action items in that coastal adaptation plan.
Okay, thank you. So then just to carry on with comments, one thing that's really interesting this year is that we are trying to bring back forward our budget sooner rather than later, which I think is a really exciting move for the district. As the mayor has talked about, it just allows us to implement our capital project program and operations faster and get more done in a year. And that's probably why we're feeling a little more pressure right now between getting information out and being able to weigh in on it. But I will say, I still feel like we've spent more time than ever going into deeper dive on this budget as a council than I can recall in my 7 years. So I'm happy about that. And, as far as the downloading of the province, that is the story of the year that we're starting to see crop up across Metro. And I believe the mayor of Port Moody put a dollar value to these downloads wants to send an invoice to the province, which, you know, is somewhat amusing, but at the same time, if they don't realize the impact that they have on our community, downloading more work, giving us less opportunity to generate revenue, I don't see that being sustainable for municipalities. And there's very few municipalities that are actually quite wealthy and can go at things this way. So I do think it's something we have to address in our conversations for sure. And Mr. Mayor at Metro can probably get his colleagues together to do a more effective communication with the province. Because I don't think we alone as a community can make much of an impact. It's got to come from a collective. And I think, oh, the other thing around downloading, we were at a police board meeting the other day talking about our homeless. And again, this is another example of downloading where the police are not in healthcare. They're in police enforcement. And really the homeless situation has a lot to do with mental health, whether it's the housing or supports that they need to create a better environment for them. And it's a really frightening situation to consider when we get deeper and deeper into this, our lack of ability to manage homelessness. And again, we've got to figure out where to turn that around. So I'll leave my comments there. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gambioli.
Okay, so just a couple more things. I wonder if you could go back to the slide prior to this one. I think it's, oh, sorry. No. Yes, this one. So I understand the concern with kind of tight timelines in terms of deciding this tonight. Normally we sort of unveil the proposed tax rate from staff in December and, you know, have a conversation around the context. And we've been a little busy this year with changes in the finance department, and that hasn't happened. But I think at the end of the day, staff have worked really hard, and I'm feeling pretty comfortable with this. We do have some feedback from the public, from the budget feedback back in September, and also from last week, and also from, you know, a few emails in the past week or two since the budget's been disclosed, or the proposal's been disclosed. So you know, I feel okay about that. We could let it go on another 2 weeks, but I'm not sure that it would change a whole lot in terms of my thinking. I wanted to just emphasize that you said earlier that you know, people should be aware that only 46% of the total that you see on your property tax bill in July actually comes to us. The other 54% is just collected by us and sent on to other agencies. So when you look at the bottom number, you have to divide it in two, and at least more than that. And don't blame us for the rest. And as we can see here, this slide, I wanted to show that under the revenue total, the committed costs are most of it, you know, the real driver here is the labor agreements. 4.38%. So, you know, that's a part of our operating budget which represents over 80% of the budget that we can't do anything about. And those costs are built in for the next few years based on the labor agreements. So it's really hard then to have any wiggle room here because we're a service organization. I mean, what we do is we have staff that serve the public, and that's what we do. So that's why our labor costs are, you know, high relative to everything else. So anyway, the last thing is just the question about the environmental reserve. I really think that the public has told us they don't want it to be used as a sort of a slush fund. I don't want to see it going that way. We know, as you said, we have huge infrastructure costs potentially coming down the pipeline, $75 million to raise the seawall and do all sorts of things that we may need to do in the future. So I don't think that we can start deferring money away. So we need to build it up. So I don't want to go down that path. So I'm happy to make a motion to ensure that the 400K does not get reduced from the environmental reserve, and we find alternatives methods, and then I'm happy to vote for this proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Gambioli. I think that can be achieved by drawing down and reallocating. Ms. Boyd, do you want to outline some of the suggestions we've discussed?
Yep. We can look at reducing the election reserve. We can also increase the drawdown on the fringe benefits reserve. And then we can also look at our cybersecurity reserve and then reducing that. And we can also look at some of our assumptions for the revenue and adjust there to make out the 400,000.
Without increasing the tax rate.
Without
as
increasing the
set.
tax
So,
rate.
Councillor Gambioli, do you want to make a motion that staff be directed to make those amendments?
Yes, I do.
Okay, that's
Sorry.
moved. Is that? is
Sorry,
there a
may I
second?
interrupt, just to Ms.
Sorry.
Boyd, would it be better to have it as a 0.4 to the motion that is being proposed, that an increase of 400,000 to the 2026 environmental reserve be approved? Or do you want to list out the funding source?
I think what we can do is keep the motions as written and then add a motion saying that take out the budget reduction strategy of reducing the environmental transfer. And that staff will come up with an alternative plan and update council at the next meeting.
It's not changing the overall number, and I think that if that's council's wish, then that's moved by Councillor Gambioli. Is there a second? Seconded. Okay, I'll call the question on that amendment first. All in favor? Contrary, that motion carries unanimously. And
Mayor
that
Slater, I
takes,
apologize for the interruption. You have 2 members of the public that have signed up to address this item.
thanks very much. Thanks so much. We'll hear from the members of the public that are here this evening.
The names on the list are Kirk Lapointe and Melinda Slater.
Thank you, Mr. Lapointe. Sorry, yeah, we can clear away. Thanks for joining us, sir.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Kirk Lapointe. I'm a resident homeowner here to speak to both process and substance in this discussion because the two are inseparable. The process did not meaningfully involve the district's Finance and Revenue Advisory Committee, as it has written council and told it its first and only meeting on this budget was last Tuesday, January 20th. The main public event, a budget open house, took place last Wednesday, January 21st. That left residents and an expert committee with no realistic opportunity to influence outcomes, given that the council report for the budget on this evening's agenda was actually dated January 14th. In an election year, that's really an abusive process. Consultation that comes after decisions are effectively made is not consultation, it's notification. The headline tax levy increase understates what homeowners will experience. And when property taxes are combined with utilities, wastewater, and regional levies, households face a much larger cumulative increase. There's no effort in this presentation to present that total cost clearly, nor what the district has fought against. West Vancouver relies overwhelmingly on residential taxpayers, roughly 94% of property tax revenue. Homeowners absorb nearly every fiscal shock. There's no strategy here to reduce this concentration of risk. Bad enough that there is retail struggle, homeowners also appear to remain the backstop indefinitely. Meantime, operating costs are continuing to compound. This is acknowledged in the presentation, but acknowledgement is not a plan. There is no indication of how the growth in cost will slow relative to revenues over the next several years. Staffing growth is discussed only obliquely with no explanation of what service outcomes justify it or where limits have been set. Reserves are being used as a stabilizer, but reserves are savings, not income. Contributing less than required and drawing more than planned may balance the budget on paper, but it weakens resilience and it shifts expenses forward. There's no plan to rebuild reserves or to end reliance on them. The budget discloses an infrastructure funding shortfall of roughly $4.5 million this year, and that disclosure is important, but it's not resolution. There's no clear plan to close that gap without creating future tax shocks or a timeline for reducing the risks. And this budget sits within a 5-year financial plan. Under the district's own assumptions, rate increases in 2027 will rise sharply into the high single digits if structural changes are not made. So this is an election year plan to keep rates down today and shovel a greater burden to the next council. That risk was not clearly communicated during this budget process. If revenues stopped growing tomorrow, would West Vancouver still be financially stable? If the answer depends on reserves, deferrals, optimism, or next year's solution, maybe the budget is balanced, but it's not sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lapointe. Just to correct one misstatement. The Finance and Audit Committee, actually, we called an extra meeting, so they had an opportunity on Thursday as well as Tuesday to go into detail. And many of the members of council attended and listened to the discussion and debate. I think it was concluded at the end of that meeting that the committee was quite satisfied with the work, and I think they congratulated our finance staff for the job well done. With regards to our ongoing costs of the operation, you will hear in the near future a report that our municipal manager undertook to do to examine the entire operations of the municipality and look for a long-term strategy. That will be the subject of upcoming council meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I just perhaps Ms. Boyd can address some of the other comments made by Mr. Lapointe. I didn't write them down, but I was thinking of our planning. You made a comment about with no plan to help me out here.
I'd also just add one point. The budget number that was chosen was actually a recommendation from the Finance and Audit Committee to staff and to council last.
It was last October, sir.
Sorry?
It was last October. It was accepted then by staff.
Right. And that's what we've been aiming to come within that number.
Yes, that's correct.
But I think it's important, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the language you used, but you know, in fact, what really came out of our discussions with the FRAC was how much strategic planning goes into where we're going and why we're doing it. As you heard, the council had expressed their acknowledgement that reserves is not the way to go. We certainly do recognize that. And the other assumptions, well, I'll leave those with you, but can you perhaps talk a little bit to the types of strategy and planning we do to keep ourselves in a very healthy position that we are in?
Through the mayor to Councillor Thompson, throughout the year, we do strategic planning. We look at sort of requests from council, what's in the strategic plan. We look at what can be absorbed into the work plan. We look at what is the pressure and what can be shifted off, and we look at our priorities. In the 5-year plan that we have, yes, I do note that years 2 to 5, there is an increase in the tax rate, and that's given solely on sort of status quo if we didn't change anything else. And we included sort of collective agreement increases in there, and also some modest revenue adjustments and increases. It would have a sharp tax impact. But without then, every year we do look at cost savings and cost measures. Like Ms. Laptieva mentioned earlier in her presentation, there was about $1 million found in cost savings and adjustments that then brought down the tax rate. We do this every year. We are planning for more, as Mr. Mayor had said, that our municipal manager will be bringing forward a report to look at the operations of our organization. And that's our starting point, kind of to help mitigate against future cost increases. But it is very challenging, as Councillor Gambioli has said, about we are a service organization, so it's staff costs. About 40, almost 45% of our staff costs are related to the public safety area. So that's police and fire. And we have actually very little say and influence on the unions for that. That's set on a regional pattern, and we follow the regional pattern.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Slater. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thanks for having me. Good evening, Melinda Slater, 1058 Keith Road. And I'd like to start by thanking Mayor and Council for creating the Finance and Revenue Advisory Committee. Mayor Sager, I think you were a big instigator on that, and I think it's a brilliant idea. And maybe one of the best decisions that's been made. I wholeheartedly support it, as do I think many other residents and taxpayers. So big thank you for that. But I do understand that the Finance and Revenue Advisory Committee has several concerns about the proposed budget and 5-year financial plan, and that they have concern that the proposed schedule for the decisions on these matters is unnecessarily rushed and gives no opportunity for FRAC to provide meaningful input, advice, or recommendations to council on the budget and property tax increase, which to me just seems crazy because we've got this wonderful committee. So I just can't see why we wouldn't use them. Now, I know you've said, I guess another meeting was squeezed in there, but that doesn't seem enough. And
Ms. Slater, if I can just quickly interrupt it's one of the challenges. An earlier recommendation was to try and move up the budget process. And the reason that's useful for the staff is if they know earlier in the year what they've got for capital spending, whether it's, use an example, road paving, the earlier that they can go up to contract on that, the likelihood of finding savings and getting a job started and completed within the season. So that was part of the rationale for moving things up. And I think the goal is for this year and going forward is to start the budgeting process much earlier. And with regards to FRAC, because yes, it was a committee that I committed 3 years ago to establish, and I think it has been very worthwhile. I think if we left last Thursday's meeting with any thoughts or concerns out of that, we would have delayed further. But that meeting was, I think, very productive. And I think everyone left there with a sense that the overall budget number is sensible.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I think that the budget number is maybe not so much where the main concern lies from what I'm hearing. And I do hear tonight that council has spent a lot of time on this and has certainly seems to have a level of comfort with the budget, but it's a bit alarming when I'm hearing from on the other side that FRAC doesn't seem to share that comfort level. I do think we do need to start this process earlier, which for the future reference and going forward. And I'm not quite sure what the big, fair enough that you start it sooner, staff gets on with their work, great. But, you know, my God, a couple of weeks. I mean, we're already moving this ahead earlier than what we have done in past years. But, you know, I also wanted to add about the public consultation period that ran January 7th to the 21st with a single open house for the public on the 21st is not sufficient. The previous speaker, I think, touched on that. And I agree. I think that just kind of makes a mockery out of community engagement. So anyhow, I would just leave off by saying, I think we've got a wonderful committee here. I would really like to see that we take the best advantage of the brain power on that committee and give them every bit of support that is possible. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Ms. Slater. Any other members of the public? Councillor Watt.
So, yeah, thank you to both of the previous speakers. And I also sit on the Finance and Revenue Committee with Mayor Sager, and I cannot speak highly enough about the contribution that they bring, their collective experience and intelligence. They are an enormous asset. And, you know, I spoke briefly in my first comments that I would like to see this pushed. I believe that pretty much every member of FRAC, myself included, Mayor Sager, and everybody at this table is comfortable with the number, but I do share concerns that we need to give it a little more time, but there is not support around this table.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor?
Motion on the floor. There's no motion on the floor yet.
Oh, nobody moved the motion. Okay. Well, I'm going to ask Councillor Thompson if you would be kind enough to put a motion forward.
Sure. I'd like to propose that
No, I don't think there was a motion. I think you're right.
Okay, and then we were just get added as a 4.4, to review
Yes.
the environment
Yes.
levy. Okay. So I'd like to propose.
Sorry, Mayor Sager, sorry to interrupt. The motion regarding the environmental reserve was already moved and seconded and
That's right.
voted on.
Yes, we
Okay.
have that part done.
Okay.
So we just need the 1, 2, and 3 done.
Okay. I'll recommend that the report titled Proposed 2026 Operating and Capital Budgets be received for information. The proposed 2026 operating levy of 2.43% be approved, and the proposed 2026 asset levy increase of 1% be approved.
Thank you. Councillor Gambioli.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Except that I think we had different people first, seconding, and maybe.
No, but it doesn't matter. We've got we have the item 4 moved. They've got it.
Yep.
I know they've got it. All right, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary, the motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, and we will move now to item 7, please. Modification of clerical amendments to enforcement bylaws. Councillor Cassidy, please.
Yeah.
I'd like to proceed as written. Thank you very much.
Seconded by Councillor Watt. Do you second the motion? Okay, the motions are moved and seconded as written. I'll call any discussion. Call a question. All those in favor? Contrary, carried. Thank you. Could I also ask you for a motion, just so it's clear on the second page? Could I ask you to move those amendments as well? The municipal ticket information system.
Oh, me? Sorry, Councillor Watt and I are going back and forth with these blue sheets because in my putting everything in the recycling bin, I also put my blue sheets in there. So I'm a little bit aggressive in that respect. So do you want me to read this in the entirety or
No,
just as written?
It's fine as written.
Yes, as written.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Watt as well. Thank you. Any discussion? Question, all in favor? Contrary, carried. Thank you. Bylaws, a minor amendment to proposed zoning bylaw. Councillor Snyder, please. Oh, Ms. McGuire, did you want to give a presentation on this?
I can,
Right.
but I
Yeah.
don't have to.
It's a very
To
minor.
waive the presentation, I'm totally fine to do that.
Okay. Sorry, you want? You don't want it? We don't need the presentation. I think it's fine. Councillor Snyder, are you going to make a motion?
I'm prepared to make the motion. Yep. I will recommend that the proposed zoning bylaw number 4662, 2010 amendment bylaw number 5423, 2026 be read for a first, second, and third time.
Thank you, Councillor Lambert, seconding that. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Contrary, the motion is carried. Councillor Snyder, please.
I'd like to recommend that the proposed zoning bylaw number 4662, 2010 amendment bylaw number 5423, 2026 be adopted.
Thank you. Moved and seconded discussion. Question, all in favor? Contrary, carried. Under new business, Councillor Thompson, you wish to bring forward a motion?
Yes, thank you. I want to bring forward a motion about adding 2196 Marine Drive to our heritage registry. You know, I sense is it's just an added layer of protection for this building. And while I don't really like to put further barriers and hurdles between properties and development, I believe what this would do is secure the building so that it couldn't be demolished until they either got a development permit or a building permit. Just, can someone confirm that that is? Oh, Ms.
Ms.
McGuire.
McGuire, can you help with this?
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor Thompson. Yes, it would be a building permit. They would need to have an issuable building permit before a demolition permit could be issued if the site was on the community heritage register.
Yeah, and you know, the reason I'm doing this is since I've been on council, the concept of preserving heritage in our community has been quite front and center. And we've made some progress, but it's just an ever challenging thing to do. And I think if we are going to get serious about protecting heritage, we have to take certain measures like this. You know, and what we're seeing is projects coming up for development, and then they just sit there derelict until, well, we're just seeing more and more projects that, so I'd hate to see this building go all of a sudden and nothing happen on that site for years. And I just thought I'd bring it forward for council discussion and support if there will be.
Okay, so you're moving a motion because members of the public might not have seen the opportunity. Here it is. So if everyone could take a moment just to read your proposed motion. And then I'll ask if anyone wishes to second the motion. Councillor Cassidy. So we have a motion moved and seconded. Councillor Gambioli.
So, okay, I'm just reading this and seeing this for the very first time. You too? Okay. And so the 60-day period that we put on for protection elapses next week. So is there any indication from the owners that they're going to, you know, keep this building or tear it down? I mean, do we have any indicator from staff or?
These can clarify.
Mr. Bailey, they have certainly been in talking to members of the staff about the site.
Through the mayor, I mean, they have applied for a demolition permit. They have reached out to have further conversations. I have not met with them, but you know, I intend to meet with them if they want to meet with me.
Did you just say they have not reached out?
They have reached out to me.
They have reached
but we
out.
don't have a meeting set up. But hopefully we can meet as soon as possible.
I would say that would be probably a good idea.
Yep.
Uh,
Staff have made themselves available to me.
But I mean, if, I'm assuming if they had other plans for this building, they would have talked to you by now. And so I just don't understand the value of us creating this administrative procedure and then just to have that building there for another year, a dilapidated building before they tear it down. I just don't see
I
the
mean,
value.
through the mayor, it does give us more time to have conversations with them. I mean, they could not, it's on Wednesday, so it's January 29th, so Thursday they'd be able to demolish the building. So this gives us more time.
Yep.
It's a tool in our toolkit where, you know, you've adopted the building bylaw that provides that extra level of protection for heritage by requiring that a building permit be issuable prior to demolition. So they wouldn't be able to just demolish the building if you pass this motion. If you don't pass this motion, then they're able to demolish the building on Thursday or Friday.
Mhm. Can I speak to that?
Councillor
Councillor
Gambioli.
Gambioli?
Okay.
You know, the further thing is when we were here in council discussing the 60-day protection, I believe they felt they didn't want that in place because they wanted to demolish and start preparing the site as ASAP. But we have still seen no plans for any building on that site.
I have not seen
No.
any plans.
Yeah, so that's why I'm here. So
Thank you. Councillor Cassidy, please.
Yes, I supported the 60-day protection period, and as Councillor Thompson has brought to our attention, it is ending very, very shortly. And one of the things in this community, that there have been a number of absolutely gorgeous heritage buildings that have been torn down because we have been too late to put the protection on the building. And so this just gives us an opportunity to be a little bit ahead of the horse before they all come storming out of the barn, as the saying would go.
Thank you. Councillor Snyder, please.
So, Mr. Bailey, just to confirm, by having it on the, as being proposed here to be included on the heritage registry, it doesn't preclude, it doesn't force, I'm just wondering, what added layers are we putting on development? I mean, right now, everybody's talking about things are stalling, nothing is happening. You know, we have a building that's being torn down and then all of a sudden plans, you know, fall apart. Is this a process that is going to delay progress? Or, you know, I'm just wondering, is this going to do anything to the developer once they come forward with whatever they're going to come forward with at some point or another? Does having this layer cause further delays and costs for that matter?
Through the mayor, I think it's a matter of perception. I think what this does is it allows us more time to have a conversation with them, to maybe educate on opportunities and incentives that might be available for them to take advantage of the retention of the building. If their intention is solely to demolish this building, then I think that the fair answer is that yes, this does create, just a barrier to and a time delay to them demolishing the building and moving on with their development plans.
And this site-
That being said, I think, it's a former gas station. So in any scenario, if they do demolish the building, they would still be into, site remediation that of course would take, some time moving forward.
And the site is currently zoned.
I believe it's zone CR2, commercial restricted 2, which is basically a very restricted commercial use for gas stations, service stations, that sort of thing.
So they would have to come forward in any event with a zoning.
They have to come forward for a rezoning to be consistent with, any sort of residential or mixed use project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gambill.
But hang on, what about the Ambleside local area plan? Doesn't it extend to this?
This site, I believe, was instructed by council to take it out of the Ambleside local area plan. So
It's completely out?
that's out. And the intention was to look at this site in coordination with the development of the Civic Center site. The current, and there is a current development permit designation for this site that's, generally consistent with the existing zoning. Anything that would come forward would be a rezoning application and likely an OCP amendment to put in a development permit area for form and character to deal with a residential and a mixed use development.
But as you just said, the site requires rehabilitation because it was a gas station and that could take several years. And so if this building were sitting there, that would impede that to happen.
Correct.
And if this building is a significant heritage icon, why is it not on the registry already? We have several hundred buildings on our registry.
So through the mayor, there are, there's a handful of buildings in the community that have not been identified. I think you've heard from, heritage folks in the community and the Historical Society that indeed this building does have important heritage merit. I think there's been several pieces of correspondence and research to that effect that have been provided to council. We think that it would be reasonable, within the sort of parameters of what constitutes heritage, that this be put on the heritage register. Where that from a heritage perspective, we think that this is consistent with, a building that could be on the register. But of course, it's up to council to determine if they want to do so, and thereby adding that if you will, added layer of protection regarding retention of the building.
What happens? Sorry, I'm just going a little bit into the future in theory. Okay, this is on our frequent transit network, right? We are under threat from the provincial government to upzone, significantly densify everything along our frequent transit networks. How does that mesh with this idea of the heritage property and the provincial government just saying, screw you, we're going to upzone it for you?
Sure. So through the mayor, as with all of these things, I think it would be a careful balance between protecting and maintaining that heritage and providing density on the site that extends to the corner. Opportunities could be provided, for example, where you retain the existing heritage structure and provide, frankly, significantly more density on the vacant part of the parcel to the west, and that would be
a tall tower.
But yeah, there would be a trade-off, I think, and that would be something that council would have to consider. And that, is part of the value proposition that you need to think about is, saving this heritage worth it. And what's the trade-off with that? It would, in my opinion, involve more density on the, portion of the site that goes to the west. In exchange, you can see a number of examples of heritage revitalization agreements. You can look to our friends at the City of Vancouver, where they have preserved some significant architecture. Of course, there's a trade-off insofar as there is more density on the site. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You could have a very well-designed project with density on the corner and a preserved gas station site with whatever use would be deemed to be appropriate in that.
What's your recommendation?
This is a motion this is a council has moved this forward. Staff's perspective on this is we have no concerns with this. I think that it does provide an additional level of heritage protection. And I think that we would be open to working with the person, the developer to come in and look at a solution.
This can be seen as an incentive. If the
Absolutely.
if the property owner views this in a slightly different light, this could be a win for them. But Councillor Watt, please.
That's okay. Yeah, having just fled the snowstorm in Toronto this morning, I spent the weekend there, and the last couple of nights I was back in places I used to know. Beautiful old heritage buildings on Elm Street, if anybody's familiar with Toronto, surrounded by towers. And that is the one thing that we seem to I'm not saying West Vancouver in particular. In fact, we've been, pretty good at maintaining, hanging on to heritage properties, to the best of our abilities. But, you can't get it back. When it's gone, it's gone. So those are my comments on that bit of dialogue. But the other thing, there was a rather robust discussion about the actual tanks that are on the property I think it was early December when it came forward. So I believe the owner was presenting or painting it as quite a matter of urgency, that this had to be dealt with and the tanks had to come out immediately. Am I remembering that correctly? And is there any merit in that? It seemed odd at the time.
Through the mayor, I was not at that discussion, so I can't comment on it. I don't also know about its accuracy, neither confirm nor deny, but I'll take the owner for his words.
Okay, thanks. Anyway, I'm highly supportive of this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Snyder.
I just wanted to clarify something, Mr. Bailey. You had said that the building would not be eligible to be torn down until a building permit was issued. But prior to a building permit being issued, the site would need to be remediated because it was a gas station previously. And to remediate the actual property, you wouldn't be able to do so with that existing structure on the property.
So sorry, through the mayor, to Councillor Snyder, just to clarify, that's right. We could not issue a demolition permit until a building permit was issuable. So that's the case. In terms of remediation, I'm assuming that any sort of redevelopment of the site would involve some form of remediation, whether that was the retention of the building or if they were to demolish the building and do an underground structure because there was a gas station there, they would have to take steps in a complete redevelopment of the site, of a complete remediation. Now, if they retain the existing building in its location and say did another development just to the west on that western portion of the site, there would likely be some remediation. I'm not certain what that would be, given that you wouldn't necessarily be digging under the gas station site, but that's something that we would have to go through with our building permit process and sort of have the relevant experts look at it that time.
Okay, I guess my concern is just and I'm all about, trying to preserve some of the heritage for sure and the character of the community. There's no question about that. I'm just looking at, something is definitely going to happen at that site. I mean, that there's no question that site is, beyond life and it needs to be redeveloped for the betterment of the community without a doubt. I guess I'm just concerned about us putting in a barrier that is then going to prevent or cause significant delay. If all of a sudden work needs to be done on the site and you can't do that particular work on that site with the existing building as it is, then they're not going to be able to ever apply for a building permit and be able to demolish the building. I guess I'm just concerned that we're becoming a real bureaucratic wheel here and getting in the way of progress.
I think that's a fair concern. Like if you're worried about sort of the time issue, but just to be clear, what the developer could do, and I'm loath to say this, but we can issue a development permit upon the issuance of a building permit. So they could come in, apply for a building permit, not build what they were going to build. They say that's consistent with the existing C2 zone, and then demolish the building. I expect your next comment will be, well, that seems very bureaucratic that we're kind of taking that step. And I don't disagree with you. But the path here and the intention here is to, you know, put another level of protection on it, to have an opportunity to discuss with the developer more opportunities for heritage incentive. If they choose to take us up on that, that's great. I think it can be positioned as a win-win. If they don't choose to take us up on that, then I think the kind of the quid pro quo on that is, yeah, I think we are adding delay and a barrier to the efficient processing of the site. And that's the trade-off that I think you're wrestling with in considering this motion.
And again, we're not voting on this motion as it is this evening anyways. It's just, oh, we
No,
are.
this is actually on the agenda. It was added to the
Oh, to
agenda,
actually
so
be
it's
on.
not a notice of motion. It is,
Ah,
it is a
okay.
motion. I would just say that if the owner of the property, Petrocan or its parent company, comes forward and at least sits at the table, we can have a discussion. And if it's completely impractical or impossible, and they're not interested in any of the incentives that could be provided, we can issue council can issue a demolition permit. We can withdraw this. Councillor Cassidy.
Being a resident cynic, I suspect that the applicant more than likely wants to remediate the soil as quickly as possible and thereby taking down the building, because it will reduce his headache as far as a heritage site is concerned. So he can expedite the process of eliminating community participation by taking down the building. But, you know, in many countries, they build over heritage sites, and you had earlier mentioned beside them. So this need, as previously expressed, this can be a win-win for us all, and animate Marine Drive so that just doesn't look like a series of towers all the way along or a series of buildings. There are points of interest as we go along the corridor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bailey. I'd like to recognize a member of the Heritage Committee. Would you like to come forward and address council? I just noticed, I think you wanted to speak, so.
Yes, thank you. Susan Walker, VP North Shore Heritage. I had created the statements of significance for the building known as Pacific 66, and had actually met with Suncor and their partner developer JTA. And I'd like to say that they do seem very interested in keeping the building, recognizing that it would come with, as Jim Shell pointed out, some additional heritage to correct some misconceptions about being able to remediate the building with or without the building in place, or remediate the site. I have personally spoken to Nickel Brothers, who actually did a site review, and they did confirm they've done a number of these gas stations before, and they are able to move the building both on site and off-site in order to fully remediate. Now, that does depend on the amount of toxicity within the site. And from passing by and asking a few questions of those working on the site this past week, I have ascertained that they are currently testing. So they don't yet know how damaged the site is in terms of the chemicals that have existed there for the past few years.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, for the record. could I get your
Susan
name?
Walker.
Susan Walker.
Susan Walker, thank you.
North Shore Heritage. So I guess in a nutshell, we believe that the building is very, very important. We believe there's an opportunity for a strong development opportunity, a la what has been done at Azetta, to increase the added vibrancy of that neighborhood. We recommended to Suncor and JTA that they move the building to the corner of the site, and therefore allow a larger tower to the back of the building, to not allow for facadism, but to have an inspirational building that is inspired by the very nature of the mid-century modern building currently on the site, and to restore it. They seemed at the end of that meeting to be quite amenable. And so therefore this motion would be in support of their comments, that this would be a win-win per Mayor Sager's comments for the community and for them, and they will need this kind of registry acknowledgement and being on the official West Vancouver registry in order to proceed with that HRA.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Is there any further discussion, members of council? Any questions? No one else wished to it? No one knew this was on the agenda. Got added late. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary, the motion is carried. Item number 10, please, the consent agenda. Councillor Watt.
Yeah, I'd like to recommend that the consent agenda items as written be approved.
Thank you. Councillor Cassidy. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary, carried. Could I ask for reports from members of council? And I think Councillor Cassidy, you wish to give us an update.
Yes, I do. As everyone knows, I'm on the Liquid Waste Committee for Metro Vancouver, and people do, get a bit of a chuckle out of that, but it is an inordinately significant committee. They just recently completed from their Our Oceans Thank You campaign. And the reason I want to again bring this to the forefront is that, as you know, everyone knows that we are an aging community. We have a very large individuals who are delightful to be living a long life. They're not senior citizens, they're important citizens, but their survey found that people age 55 plus are the least likely to wash in cold water. So while we always blame the young, in point of fact, the problem is ours. And why it's important to wash in cold water is because it reduces the microfibers, which shed up to 50%. And if you wash in cold water, you reduce the amount of microfibers that go into the oceans, of which our fish feed on. You will extend the life of your fabrics, and Mother Nature will give you a thank you, as will our sewage process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy. Councillor Gambioli, please. Oh, sorry. Councillor Gambioli.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to report on the UDI luncheon that I went to last week. So yes, was spent a couple of hours in a very large convention room with about 1,250 very concerned people in the development, real estate, and legal industries relating to development in the Lower Mainland. And it was their sort of 2026 outlook. And they had 4 members of a panel who, I guess the highlights just for us, trying to allay some concerns that, pointing out that development in general, real estate is cyclical and regional as well, and that rents are actually coming down, which is, I guess, good news for some. Related to governments, basically governments are doing everything wrong at all levels. And having said that, the province should re-examine the municipal infrastructure financing system for municipalities, which I wouldn't disagree with. Buy now, if you've got money, was one thing that kept recurring, and it's going to be better in the third quarter, is what the advice was. So anyway, interesting.
I can only hope. Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
That sounds very optimistic, but interesting. And those are very important reports you're given, but I'm here more to goad my fellow councillors on, because we're just over a month into our new pilot project of the pop-up sauna in Ambleside near the boat shed. And I braved, talk about thank you to the waters. I braved it last week, taking the cold plunge in 5 degrees water and then sitting in that little sauna. And I'm not a plunger and I don't enjoy being cold, but I have to say it was a wonderful experience. So I'm challenging my fellow councillors to go check it out, and anyone in the community. It's, if it's not in your comfort zone, it's the one thing to try that's outside your comfort zone. I guarantee it.
Thanks very much. And Councillor Gambioli.
Sorry, I hear you can also go in the dark if you don't want to expose anyone else to your, skin color at this time of year.
Sunset's the best.
Thank you. And I think it would be appropriate just to note and express our thanks to the Western Ratepayers Association for hosting a residents association. Thank you for that correction. Hosting a very good and very well attended meeting on Tuesday night. And I thank Councillors Cassidy, Thompson and Watt for joining me. And nice to see the response from the people there. That was an excellent evening. Any other reports? Could I have a motion to receive the reports, please? Councillor Snyder.
Well, I'll recommend that the oral reports from the mayor and councillors be received for information.
Councillor Lambert. Discussion, question, all in favor, contrary, carried. Are there any members of the public that have any questions or comments this evening?
Yes, Mayor Sager, we have a speakers list with 5 names on it at the moment.
Oh, patient people tonight.
The first 2 names are Dennis Perry, followed by Penny Clark.
Thank you. Mr. Perry, you'll be happy to know your subject is on the council agenda for February 9th. There you go.
Dennis Perry, 6129 Bonnie Bay Place in West Van. Good evening, Mayor and Council. You've all received a copy of the Lawson Lundell grinder pump opinion letter sent on Friday to Hildebrand, your lawyer. I would ask you all to read it carefully to see the bylaws and the community charter, which were broken when you instituted the October 23 sanitary bylaw affecting West Van owned grinder pumps on private property. This opinion letter clearly states that the 2023 bylaw is invalid. It's not legal as it contravenes all of the relevant bylaws in the community charter. West Van is back to the status quo pre the 2023 bylaw. This turns back the clock. This means that West Van owns the grinder pump systems and is obligated to continue to maintain, service, repair, and replace the systems as necessary. We are asking that this be clearly stated in the new bylaw. In addition, we're also asking that all West Van owned grinder pump expenses incurred by West Van taxpayers since West Van dropped the ball in October 23, that those expenses be reimbursed by West Vancouver to those people. You know, this situation has caused a lot of good people, a lot of sleepless nights, and a lot of stress. And it was probably never your intent. But I kind of wish all of you had West Vancouver owned grinder pumps and you would know what we've been through. It's been hell. It's wasted a lot of time and a lot of money. It's been going on for 3 years now, and it's time for you to fix it. And we're asking you to make this happen as soon as possible.
Mr.
Thank
Perry,
you.
as I mentioned, that the full staff report that members of council have received will be on the agenda for February 9th, and there'll certainly be an opportunity for full and complete discussion on it at that time.
Well, my only comment, Mr. Mayor, would be we'd like to think that there'd be some response to Lawson Lundell's opinion letter to you all well before then.
Yes, our legal counsel has reviewed it and have their comments.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank
sir.
you.
Next,
Penny Clark.
Ms. Clark, thank you for joining us this evening.
So I'm Penny Clark and I live at 6050 Glen Eagles Drive. And my contribution here was sparked by Mayor Sager's attendance at the Western Residents Association meeting last week. And I'll also thank Councillors Cassidy, Watt, and Thompson for attending that meeting too. When I asked Mayor Sager who owns the grinder pumps, he said he didn't know. And I thought, well, I guess I better come and tell him who owns them. So when it was a bit, when he went to the West Vancouver Residents Association meeting in 2024, the first thing he said was, I don't want to talk about grinder pumps. I don't know if you remember that.
I sure do.
It was a bit of a joke, but it's no joke for those of us who are living with this situation. Through no fault of our own, because West Vancouver decided to take the cheap route when our lots were first serviced and not install a proper lift station, we have grinder pumps. We pay our taxes like everyone else, but don't receive the sewer service that other homeowners in West Vancouver do. And I just want to explain what it's like to live with this uncertainty. At this time, we feel like we're one toilet flush away from disaster. One of our neighbors happens to be an engineer, and he recently replaced his pump himself. I can't even imagine that. I mean, I don't have that skill set. My husband certainly doesn't have it either. I'm just glad he didn't electrocute himself and sue the city. I was told by another neighbor who just had the same experience that it's very difficult to find a private firm to service the pumps because they don't want to deal with the city because everything's so nebulous right now. You know, I do most of my work from my home office. Where would we live and how would I work if something goes wrong with that grinder pump and we can't get servicing right away? This is no joke to me. I note that the district has always taken good care of it. We had it replaced at one point. This was done very quickly and very efficiently. On another occasion, when it wasn't working, someone came immediately on a Saturday to look at it. He concluded that it was frozen and that he couldn't do anything about it at that point because of the cold weather. But a crew was back first thing on Monday morning to check. That was the level of service we received from the district. The district serviced the pumps because it owned them. I am baffled by the lawyer Ralph Hildebrandt's contention in his letter of December 2nd, 2025, that the district has never owned them. There are at least 4 pieces of evidence supporting the fact that the district does own them.
That's your
All
time
of
now.
which, okay, I'll just laid out in the letter from Camille Chisholm, the lawyer at Lawson Lundell. 1, the fact that the district has always maintained and replaced them. 2, 208 grinder pumps are listed as a district asset in the February 4th, 2010 inventory. 3, engineering informed owners that the district was transferring owner to us. You can't transfer ownership if you don't own something in the first place. And 4, they have a sticker on them that says property of West Vancouver. So thank you.
Thanks very much. And we'll look forward to seeing you on February 9th. And the report from staff should be out on the Wednesday prior to that. Thank you. The next speaker is?
The next 2 speakers are Patricia McLeod, followed by Sue Goddard and Maureen O'Brien.
Thank you. Ms. McLeod, are the 2 of you joining us at the same time?
We're a team.
Perfect. Sorry, who's who then? If you
I'm Patricia McLeod.
Thank you.
And I'm not. So I'm a board member of the West Vancouver Field Hockey Club, a longtime West Van hockey member. I played with Suzanne Sager at Hillside back in the day. And I was also chair of the Rutledge Field Project, where our club donated $1 million to West Vancouver to put in Rutledge Field. We continue to pay rental fees to use the field. So the reason I'm here tonight is pay parking, Ambleside Sports Fields. Unfortunately, after the December 1st meeting and our letters, we still have not had any consultation with staff, none at all. And this is a big problem because our spring league starts in 63 days. And there will be thousands, well, we have over 1,000 kids expected to be coming to the field every week. So our ask at this time is, number 1, pause the program. Number 2, let's have some consultation. So just a little background, you're probably familiar with some of the concerns. The 55 partner passes we received post December 1st do not address the concerns at all. So as an example, we will need to send emails out to our members prior to the start of Spring League. So there are 2 choices. The first email would say something like, unfortunately, we still don't have clarity from the district regarding pay parking at Rutledge Field. You may be paying $11 to watch your child play hockey. We recommend you park in the residential or commercial areas at this time, as District of West Vancouver continues to target youth sports to collect revenue, and we have been unable to get consultation. That's email one.
Sorry,
That's email one.
Quick question. You said $11? How long?
Yeah, because apparently it's going back up to $5.30 after May 1st. As far as we don't know, nothing's confirmed.
Okay. Because
Email
it's
one.
$2 an hour,
It's over $2 right now.
$2 plus service charge.
But that goes until May 1st, and then it's unknown.
Okay.
And we haven't had any communication at all. Email number two, possible email number two. We, the club, together with the other sports groups at Ambleside, have worked with the District of West Vancouver to come up with a fair and reasonable pay parking plan. See below, we fully support it. Obviously, we would prefer to send email number two. But to do that, we need a big pause on pay parking right now until there's some consultation and we can get a nice, fair, reasonable plan that serves everyone's needs.
That's your time, ma'am.
Thank you.
Perfect timing. Would you like to add some comments as well?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sue Goddard. I'm the president for West Vancouver Field Hockey Club. I'm here representing the club, but I'm also here for our partners at West Vancouver Football Club, Hollyburn Sailing Club, West Vancouver Little League, and with the support of Ambleside Dundee BIA. The introduction of paid parking has already created barriers for coaches, volunteers, umpires, referees, and team managers. These are volunteers, individuals who donate countless hours to support youth support in West Vancouver. We're hearing clear feedback from visiting teams across the North Shore and the Lower Mainland that paid parking means they're less willing to travel to West Van for games, tournaments, and events. This affects league scheduling, competitive play, and the reputation of West Vancouver as a welcoming host for youth sport. It's important to note that no other sports fields in the GVRD, with the exception of 4 in the city of Vancouver, require paid parking at their fields. The addition of this cost to existing fees for sports participation works against all the principles of sport for life and building healthy, thriving communities, which we know is a priority for the District of West Vancouver. A thriving sports scene at Ambleside Fields helps to support local businesses. Hundreds of parents, grandparents, siblings, friends who would normally attend games and then visit local businesses are discouraged by the added parking cost. As Pat mentioned, sports parking is now flowing into common commercial and residential areas, which is creating challenges for local businesses and their customers. We'd also like to remind council that these sports groups significantly make financial contributions towards the community, and the fees we've already paid towards using these spaces contribute up to millions of dollars, in which we are happy to itemize and share with council. Having said all of that, and again, in the absence of any consultation with our groups, we once again urge council to pause paid parking at Ambleside, initiate a proper consultation process now before spring season, and for soccer that begins in the next few weeks. And in the absence of any consultation with staff, these groups we've already met to work on some possible solutions that would meet our collective needs. Some of these solutions include limit paid parking outside of our busy seasons, season-based pay parking, an initial free time for anyone to play their sport, time of day rates, applying a maximum time limit, an annual free parking pass for sports members, possibly looking at a single provider for pay parking across the North Shore. And we understand there's data that's already available from the city of Vancouver, that more data will be made available from the city of North Vancouver with their parking changes. We suggest that paid parking be paused until all that data is analyzed and consultations with user groups are conducted to come up with fair and reasonable solutions for all. We really believe that the best path forward is working together. We continue to ask council to pause paid parking in Ambleside Park, engage with business, sports groups, and residents to develop an approach that truly works for everyone. At its core, a parking policy should support a vibrant, accessible, and collaborative community, and we're a better community if we can all work together.
Thanks very much. And anybody else?
And the last speaker on our list is Maureen O'Brien.
Ms. O'Brien. She'll probably echo what you're saying. Look at the smile on her face. Do you think?
Well, I'm going to start by thanking staff. First of all, thanking the budget for including a parking bylaw officer. That would be fabulous. Secondly, thanking Emily Willoughby, Stephen Liu, and Councillor Gambioli. We've had successful meetings. But it's such baby steps and everything takes such a long time. And we do come up with ideas, but then I have to go back to our businesses and then staff have to go back to their staff, the rest of the staff. And then we meet again in a couple more weeks. And if we could all meet together, I have met with the sports groups 2 or 3 times now since December. We need to all work together to make this work. So once again, we are asking you to please just pause this. Last month in December, you made $10,000 in Ambleside Park. In November, you made $15,000. We're looking at February, January will probably be the same, February, March. The other day, it was 8:45 a.m. and the parking where the dog park is and it's all free was full. All the way through the park, maybe 4 cars. And then from 13th to almost 17th, not a parking spot. Our businesses aren't even open yet. There's a couple of coffee shops opened at 8:45, but the seawall was full and people were walking their dogs. That's where people are parking. So we appreciate the $250 reduction, but it's not working. It's still not free. And if we can pause this for, say, 4 months and meet with the rest of these people, all of us as a task force with staff, I do really believe we can come up with good solution that works for everybody. This council, as far as I know, all supported your letter back to the ministry saying we are the people on the ground and we're the ones that know what's best for our community. On December 31st, Mayor Sager did an interview on the Jazz Joe Hall show, which I listened to. And what he said verbatim is exactly what I'm asking for. He asks the ministry, we are asking you to work with the people that are on the ground who deal with this on a daily basis. We can be part of the solution. It's really simple. Let's start 2026 with a resolution that we start working constructively and positively together to come up with solutions. That's my wish for 2026. Now, I have 2 businesses that came up to me this week who are really, I'm not going to say who they are, but they are businesses that would be missed in this community who are looking elsewhere because they can't keep losing 20 to 30% of their revenue every month. We're looking at losing businesses because of this. So we just need to come up with a solution, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. Thanks very much. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, Councillor Cassidy, would you like to adjourn the meeting?
Yes, I recommend that the January 26, 2026 regular council meeting be adjourned.
Thank you, Councillor Gambier. Question, all in favor? Contrary, carried. Thanks very much. Thanks for joining us this evening.